Music. Let me make some adjustments here. There we go. Get that in frame. How is everybody doing this evening? Let me make one more adjustment here to my stand. Yeah, that looks good. Get the lighting over a little closer. Yeah, there we go. Good to be here this evening. Welcome to Upstairs to the Right Music. I'm Mike McWilliams. Uh, so glad to be here. We have a live stream we do every Sunday night called Sunday at Mike's. And yeah, we got another one going here. Hold on one second. Let me go over here to the chat. In 24 hours, is that wrong or yeah, for some reason I've been scheduling these live streams and in the way that I normally do. And for some reason, YouTube has been completely screwing. Hey, Maddie, completely screwing me up. Last time I programmed one in to go, and when I went to go live, it rejected it. And this one, for some reason, it's got the times all wrong. So yeah, we deal with it. I decided just to go for it anyway. Whoever shows up, and I'm glad you and Mr. Two Hats are here. Welcome, guys. Yeah, I think it's just different ways that YouTube is screwing with me. I put out that video, regular content video, the other day, yesterday, as a matter of fact, talking about how to date your, pre 75, 76 Grecos, and that's been my worst one yet. For some reason, it's just tanking in the algorithm. It doesn't discourage me. I did that as a long tail kind of video, something over time, because people will be looking that up. And I hope over the years people will look up that video, which is why I tried to be as concise as possible in it. But yeah, this live stream tonight was a little sabotaged, a little sabotage. But that's okay. I don't mind. I'm glad to be here, guys. Regardless of what YouTube tells you, Sunday night, 11 p.m. Central European Time, I will be here. So it is good to be here with you, Monica Anderson. How you doing? Welcome to the chat. Welcome. Hi. How you doing? Yeah, guys, a little sabotage with my live stream tonight, but that's okay. We're gonna move on. Upstairs to the Right Music Channel. Welcome to everybody. Do I listen to K-pop? Boy, sure. I grew up on J-pop, so it's just an extension of that. And musically, from a production standpoint, they're not that much different. Just different language. Good, Monica. Good to hear you doing well. Mr. Watson in the house. How you doing? Welcome to have all you guys. Patrick, how you doing, sir? Hope not too late for you. Good to see you. Doing fine. Monica says, "Do you listen to Eminem?" Yeah, back in the late '90s, 2000s, I guess that was. Not recently. Lucky Girly, bro, hello. I'm new. Well, that's nice. It's good to be new. And a happy Father's Day to you, all of you fathers out there. Before I really get started here, I want to say a happy Father's Day to you. You well deserved, gentlemen. Well done in everybody's case. I don't have any children myself, but I did call up my brother, my Uncle Carlton, and my father, of course, and wish them a happy Father's Day. So, of course, I want to extend the same out to you folks out there. Lana Del Rey, yeah, I like Lana Del Rey. I think Lana Del Rey actually is one of the most interesting female or artists out there right now. She's on a level. I don't know how good a player she is, but she's on a level up there with Joni Mitchell in my mind. All right, my music as a hobby. That's great. That's a fantastic hobby. Don't ever let anybody have you stop doing that. That's a great thing to do. And that's what we talk about here on this channel. So for those of you who are new, Upstairs to the Right Music channel, what we basically do is talk about guitars, gear, and related things in the industry that may or may not be your cup of tea. I certainly keep it interesting, and certainly there are a lot of things in here, even if you're not interested in any of those things, that you may find takeaways for in other aspects of your life. It's not just guitars. You're buying cars and appliances and and hopefully a new mattress, every 5 years. They tell you to do things like that. So you can apply this across the spectrum, the stuff that we talk about here. So welcome to everybody. Welcome to everybody. Can you sing me a refrain from one of your favorite songs? Really, fanboy, you want me to sing? Sing to me. I don't care how long it takes, such a pleasure doesn't happen every day. How's that? All right. I have to get up at 6. So I'll be gone soon. I hear you, Patrick. Patrick, I want to let you know I appreciate you even showing up at all. It is a great honor to have you here, sir. Um, and happy Father's Day to you, sir. You know, yeah, I'm turning 18 soon, almost an adult. Yeah, well, you'll figure it out. Life has a way of unfolding as it should. Well, actually, there's an old saying the universe tends to unfold as it should. A little metaphysical there, but basically, the road will make itself clear. So don't worry about that too much. Certainly in my life, it has. It's been a strange trip, to be sure. Okay, where to get started? I am impressed with Paul Reed Smith. If you guys haven't seen it, go over to Rick Beato's channel and take a look at one of his videos where he has Paul Reed Smith over to his studio and Tim Pierce as well. And they are doing a head to head. And I love head to heads. And this is a great one. This is a very illuminating one. And I don't agree. I've taken Paul Reed Smith to task in the past about his belief in tone woods. I'm not a strong believer in tone woods, as you guys know. I'm a strong believer in quality woods, if that helps that argument, but not in the way that Paul feels it makes a difference. But I do agree 100% with pickups. And this was a fantastic shootout because something close to my heart. Uh, so Rick Beato, Paul Reed Smith, and Tim Pierce took 4 strats, a couple of a 50 strat and a couple of 60 strat, and a 60s parts caster strat that Paul Reed Smith had put together himself over time. A 63 that he got, the pickups weren't there. I think he found a neck for it. It had the body, but didn't have neck. So over the course of a decade, I think he said he spent putting this 63 back, using 63 parts that he found in different places over the internet, trying different pickups, buying 63 pickups, seeing if they worked. Quite a few of them, dozens of them, and settling on the pickups that he put in this final parts caster, I guess you call it, if you want to, if you want to just say this is 63 Strat, in my opinion, but because it's also except for the pick guard cover that he had to do a new pick guard cover, but that's because the plastics that they used in those, and even in these Japanese made in Japan guitars, some of the earlier ones, the plastics shrink and they squeeze the pickups, causing them to bend. Maybe you'll see that sometimes where you'll see pickups bending or curling. That's because the pickguard has shrunk. So that's the only thing that was original on it. He put those all up together, chose the best one, which ended up being his Partscaster 63 Strat, which, by the way, I have an excellent sound system here at home, and so I was able to listen to it in fine detail, and it is the best sounding 63 Strat I have ever heard, hands down, in my life, in all 3 positions. A lot of Strats, you just ride in that neck if it's a good neck, and you're happy if you got that. But that guitar sounded excellent in all 3 positions. Best sounding Strat I ever heard. Then he put that up against his own PRS Silver Sky SE, fresh out of a box. He didn't choose one. He just bought a box. They opened it up and put that in. And also the PRS, what was the other one? It was a PRS S, or oh gosh, sorry. I have it here. Forgive me. Oh, the NF3. So the PRS NF3. So that really nice sounding Strat against the three of those. I was shocked. The PRS Silver Sky SE sounded just as good as that 63 Strat, which I thought sounded fantastic. Really, just really, and he said he based those pickups in that PRS Silver Sky SE on those 63 Strat pickups. The PRS NF3, I wasn't, I didn't like it. Um, it just didn't sound good. It sounded the problem that you have with a lot of new sub $1,000 strats of any kind is what I consider to be a certain muddiness in the pickup. So there's that. But you guys should check that out. Uh, the takeaway from all of that is that, you know, vintage guitars can sound great or not. There was three vintage Strats that didn't make the cut, and it was quite obvious. I mean, they weren't bad, but some were lacking in the bridge pickup, some were lacking in the neck pickup. So there's that. The other takeaway is that modern guitars, because of the construction, and Tim Pierce pointed that out. He says, I feel much more comfortable playing. He liked the NF3, but he really liked the neck on that and the way it felt. And he said it felt better than playing that vintage Strat. Because, you know, vintage guitars, if you got a little twist in the neck, it's going to happen. There's not much you can do other than replacing the neck. You're not going to do that, so you compensate for it in your setup. Or other things that can occur. The frets can wear down or have not the kind of modern frets, the modern jumbos that you usually find these days that most people are comfortable with. Um, a modern guitar is a better deal than a vintage guitar, all the way around, I would say. So if you don't have, I wanted a vintage guitar. I got one a Strat that I think is fantastic sounding. Watch the video if you guys haven't seen it on my regular content where I talk about how to identify your pre 76 Strat. Talk about it a little bit, but I will admit that the one that I built, the Strat that I put together myself with Fern, the luthier down the street, is a superior guitar in terms of playability. It doesn't have the buzzy issues in some places that 74 Greco has. Now, don't get me wrong, I still prefer playing the Greco, but that is a truth. So don't feel like you need to get a vintage guitar. And I would say that PRS Silver Sky SE is a buy. If you want a good sounding Strat sound and you don't want to go the Fender route for whatever reasons, that PRS Silver Sky SE is a beautiful sounding guitar. Beautiful sounding guitar. So the pickups, guys, it's the pickups. At the end of the day, it's the pickups. All three of the, I'm sorry, so that was in a total six guitars. So all six of those guitars had different pickups, and they had different woods. And by the way, well, not entirely. The Strats all were of similar construction, alder, but you understand what I mean. I don't feel that the wood played any role in that tone. The tone was 100% in the pickups, and Paul himself, which is odd because he's such a tone wood guy, said that himself. In a roundabout way. That the focus was really on those pickups. So something to take away, guys. If don't feel as though you have to get a vintage guitar. They're cool and awesome. Sometimes a good one is a good one, and that 63 Strat's a good one. I have to say that is the finest Strat I've ever heard. Another tip he put out is that if you really want a good Strat sound, then you need to go with low output pickups, low resistance, anything under no higher than 5K. The pickups in XLs, they all read between 4.6 and 4.9. And I think that's one of the reasons why the XL pickups from Japan back in the 70s and early 80s really are excellent. Why people like it, because they have that airy Strat sound to them. They've got that airy and it's because they're low output pickups. You know that if you want to get that sound, that's like Steve Ray Vaughan or Hendrix, get that 63 Strat sound. It's really in the low wound pickups. So that's a place to start as a little bit of a tip. Let me catch up here in the chat. What's being said here? Thanks, Mike. Yeah, you're welcome, Patrick. Man, I thought I was high, low. Anthony Thorhill, hello. How are you, Nutella? Anthony Thorhill, no Scott today. Yeah, I think Scott maybe. Yeah, I hope he shows up. Mike, PRS and Rick and Tim, Vintage Strat versus PRS. Yeah, that was great. PRS SE, good bang for the buck, in my opinion. Yeah, it really was. I could never get past the headstock on a PRS, just not for me. Yeah, I remember when those first came out. I was at West LA Music in 85, I think, 84, 85. And they had the PRSs when they first came out. And that was the only thing that threw me was the headstock. Other than that, it's a beautiful guitar. Scott, you're here. We were just talking about you. Sorry about the confusion, guys, about the time tonight. Again, YouTube kind of screwed me. I put in my usual time and programmed it as such, but it put me at another time. But you guys are all here. Thank you so much for being here. Yeah, so pickups, guys, pickups. And with Strat, you know, we won't get into pots and caps, but with Strats, you really want to keep them low output, below 5K. So that's gonna, be a good place to start if you really want to get that true sound. Now, we are going to get into a topic tonight that I think is interesting from the standpoint that it affects us as consumers, as musicians, and bystanders, I guess, in some regards, some of us, but to the overall market out there. What's going on, and a lot of the closures that are occurring in a lot of industries, and a lot of layoffs too. But putting the majority of that stuff aside and just focusing in on the music industry, we've had PMT in the UK, Bax here is shut down, now they're back, but maybe not. We've had a few of the major retailers shut down recently, music gear retailers. And go over to KDH's channel. He kind of covered this last week, where he pointed out the reason PMT, Bax, and some of the others really shut down was because they were overextended. They had 6 shops, 7 shops, 8 shops, 9 shops. They went the Guitar Center route. And it's not that musicians are not buying things. Their turnover was pretty decent. They had a pretty good revenue stream coming in. It just wasn't enough to cover their operating expenses. And so that, was, interesting to me when he was talking about that. And I thought to myself, well, hey, you know what? I think the mom and pop model, at the end of the day, in this industry, was probably the best thing. And probably in the end is going to come back. And I'm going to talk about why I think that is. Mike says the PRS headstock's ugly but effective. In my opinion, I have a 245 SC single cut. Got a deal used $400. Great guitar. Yeah, thanks, Scott. Appreciate that. Check that link out, guys. It really is illuminating. It's quite illuminating. I don't, but I've gotten past the headstock. That when I was younger, that's how I felt. Now, if I would love to. I'm going to get a chance to. I hope my client has a PRSSE in stock. I saw, so I'm going to go down to his store. There's an amp down there I'm interested in, and I'm going to play that PRSSE through that amp. Because quite frankly, I know that that'll tell me if that amp is any good or not, because I know the guitar is certainly. So that was a help to me. But anyway, even my client's store, they only have two shops. They only have two locations. And some of my other clients only have one location, and some are private dealers like myself. Uh, Keeping it small. And things are tough, but we're not having the issues. The turnover is what it is. It's pretty okay. It's not, go on vacation in Tahiti, but it's stable enough. And it got me thinking that the mom and pop, formula for doing things, and not just guitars, but appliances, a lot of stuff, was really the better way to go, to be honest with you. I really do think that that model was the best thing for us as consumers and for individuals who are interested in starting a business. Because, um, well, let me get into why. Let's recap. You know, those chains, as I said, basically fell because of overexpansion. As KDH pointed out, they had high operating cost and they had tight margins on gear. Let me pause there and talk about that for a second. You had Fender and Gibson and a lot of Fender, we'll talk about Fender. You had Fender squeezing their retailers to take guitars in. I'll put this as simply as possible. But they did not allow those shops to dictate what the price of those guitars were. This is the manufacturer's retail price on this, and the guidelines are going to come from the manufacturer, and it doesn't give the retailer a lot of a margin there. Sometimes actually the price was at a loss. They got kickbacks and things later on, but yeah, that did happen. So that's not good. That's not good at all. And if you do that enough, then you have some retailers who just say, hey, you know what? I'm done with you guys. Cut my contract. I'm out. I'll just deal with, whatever comes through the door and whatever I can scrounge up. And so that policy is I always thought was going to backfire on a Fender, for example. Because when you have your big box retailers who are like, sure, we'll go along and play with the game. We'll take that in. We'll play that game. We'll take that bet. And they're gone. Then you can't play. Then if the little guys don't want to play that game anymore, what are you going to do? Well, we'll shift to an online presence ourselves and start selling direct, which is what they did. However, that or buy Reverb, so we have a direct line to selling our stuff. You can do stuff like that, like in the case of Fender, but it really didn't. It did, in a lot of ways, end up being not a great pathway for them to go. The online shift that made physical scale a burden is not an asset. It's not an asset. Mom and pop shops had community loyalty. You know, my good friend Jock sent me a picture of a music store in LA that he and I used to go to in the 80s, and they're still there. He took a picture of it. He said, man, I can't believe it. It's still there. I couldn't believe it either. Um, Guitar shop that, I think I got my bass from that shop my first bass back in the 80s that I bought myself. My dad got me one earlier, but just the fact that it's still there thrilled me as much as it thrilled Jock. So it has that community loyalty that has a long tail over generations. When I go to LA, I'm going to go to that shop. You know, more out of the sense that I want to feel that feeling again. I want to take myself back to my, my time when I was in my early 20s, late teens, early 20s. And so that's a great thing. Repairs and trades. You could take a guitar in there to get it fixed, or you could take a guitar in there and say, hey, I want to trade up on something I saw. And I like that about some of the music stores here in Amsterdam that I can go into with something and say, hey, can we trade something on this? And can I get some money off if I give you that? It's a way for me to move stock that, that you know, really I bought specifically for that purpose as trades. I don't buy everything to sell directly. Some stuff I buy to trade. Um, and then take that trade and try to move that into something. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I could do that. And I'm glad that I have that experience here. I did not have that experience in Singapore. I did not have that experience so much in Japan. But I do have it here. Personalized service. Know thy client. If you go there enough, even to pick up a pack of strings once a month or so, they know you. They know who you are. You get to talking, you get to hear things, and that leads back to community because you can hear things about what's going on in the community as well that you may not have known, localized. And these are lean operations. These are lean operations. My operation is extremely lean. I don't hold on to stock, as you know. I buy to turn over as quickly as possible. There are some people who keep stock, so they'll keep a certain number of units 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and then they'll slowly churn through those. But these are still all lean operations compared to a Tomon or a Bax or the major big box stores because it's a different operation model. And that model has shown itself to be not good, especially with, again, like I said, online shifts that made physical scale a burden, you know, not an asset. In my opinion, that scaling up was their demise. So lean operations. I run a lean operation, and that's one thing. That's one thing. All right, let's move on to the chat here real quick and catch up. Katie's video. Thank you, Scott. I appreciate that. How ID pre 76 Greco. Thank you, Scott. You guys check both of those out. Do you rescue old guitars and make them new again? DFPV says. Yes, I do. That's mainly what I do. I have to. In order to get the margins that I want on the guitars that I bring in, I have to buy ones in Japan that need a little bit of work. And that doesn't scare, the ones that scare off a lot of people don't scare me off because I can bring it in, do a little bit of work on it and do all right. So yeah, I do that all that's my bread and butter. As a matter of fact, I just ordered us a new fret leveling tool. So yeah. Mike, better serves at a shop that's owner operated in any business. Yes. Again, we moved into this Costcoization of everything. And somebody somewhere got it in their head that that would be a great idea for music equipment. And, it works in some cases, like Tomon. I think their model works in a big box kind of way. They don't have physical locations. They only got, really one place, one physical store, but they've got tentacles out there on the internets. So I'm not saying it's a complete disaster, but if Tomon decided to open up 10 locations throughout Europe, I think they'd be suffering just like PMT and Bax. You know. So there's that. Stardom 21, say hi. Hi. So, lean operations, and what does this really mean for the future of guitar retail? Um, I think there's going to, again, I've said before that the used market will expand because finances of the world, geopolitics, geofinance, will play a role in our pocketbooks. And the internet, YouTube, and other platforms are giving information to consumers, especially guitarists and bassists and drummers and trumpet players and violinists, more information and more options in order to make smart choices. One of the motto of this channel, as you know, is "I'm good," which is basically meaning I'm good. It's got a lot of meanings, but tonight's use of the meaning is I'm good in terms of I have good information. So I'm good to go. I'm good to go out and I've done my research, I've done my homework, and I can get a good deal out on the used market. The new market, the prices, the inflation on it, especially we've talked about some of these Fender guitars, it's turning a lot of people off. Thus, online focused niche sellers. I consider myself a niche seller. I sell one type of thing. I sell made in Japan guitars pre 1989, from 1973 to 1989. So I can tell you a lot about a lot of different models. I've done my homework on them. I can identify them now through a picture, which is sometimes all I got to go on. And I'm good with that. And that's my focus. And if you're interested in that kind of thing, I'm the kind of guy that you would come to. And there are other cats out there who are focused on other niches as well. But an online focused niche seller like myself is really, like I said, we're doing okay because again, I don't have, I don't have, I'm not extended. I don't have any. I have one, partner over in Japan, and that's it. And I need to be taking better care of him, in my opinion. I want to do more so I can take better care of him, to be frank. So, but it's really again, this rebirth of independent shops. You know, this rebirth of the cool, or rather, should I put it, the rebirth of what really works. It's a model that works for so many reasons. It's so much better for the community. It's good for the community in terms of taxes because, the city takes in tax revenue. It's good for the community in terms of getting young people introduced to that kind of environment. A mom and pop store is a lot less intimidating to walk in and try out a guitar than a Guitar Center. Trust me, I've done both and I can tell you that for a fact. So, these are points that I think are going to be a good, future for guitar retail on the small mom and pop and the secondary market. And you see, nice. I just purchased my first vintage guitar. Nice. What'd you get? A 1976 Music Man Stingray. Nice, Andy. Nice, 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 nice. Yeah, I'm happy with my 74 Greco. You know, um, I'm just saying that let's be honest that modern guitars um, are better. They're better constructed. But and they can sound as good as vintage ones as well. But then again, there is a certain cool factor that cannot be denied to pulling out a 76 Stingray. So there that is. You look like my younger brother. I'm not going to read that. I'm not going to read, I don't read those things aside. I don't know if you're trying to get me or not. I'll take the compliment. Been on Allmark, kind of like they're trying to convince us that digital is better than analog, or a bunch of 3-inch speakers are better than 12 15-inch. Get the fuck out of here. Yeah, I agree. Again, these games that they play too, in so many ways. And if you're old enough, you kind of know better, and you kind of just shrug your shoulders and shake your head and say whatever. But yeah, um, yeah, Andy. Really, I bought it at the Guitar Center. Nice, nice, cool ass guitar. And I had to pull the trigger quickly because my dad has a '76 core Stingray, and I've been jonesing for an American. Nice. That's a nice story, Andy. I like that one. I used to sell hi-fi in the '80s. Modern laptop speakers do not sound as good as vintage speakers. Of course not. No, no, no. It's like what happened with those Orotones. I used to use Orotones to mix with back in the '80s. You had the two sets of speakers that you had to have in the '90s. Excuse me, if you were doing any kind of production, were in the '80s as well. Sorry, as well. Were Orotones and NS10Ms, and I had both. And then Behringer bought Ortone, and then they kept this. And you would think that those two were the same, but they're not. The old original Ortones sound better than the new Behringer made ones, and I do believe they had to stop. They had to cease and desist on that. But yeah, no, there's something about those older speakers. I really am sorry that I didn't sell that stuff. That's stuff that I gave to Richard Turner before I took my first trip to Japan, and I never went back to get it from him. So somewhere, like I said, Richard Turner's got a lot of my good stuff. Need some JBL 70 speakers with some power amps. Yeah, your neighbors are gonna love you. Man, it plays like a dream, really, but I still want a model. Yeah, again, horses for courses, guys. So again, my philosophy is I'm good. Buying smart, selling smart. And we don't need a Guitar Center on every corner. As a matter of fact, we don't need a Guitar Center at all. There was a time, there was a place, there was a space for that. But I think that time, place, and space is long gone. And they're more detrimental than they are beneficial at the end of the day. And I think the consumer benefits more from the mom and pop model. And the ones that have hung in, and small dealers like myself and others listening in that have hung in there, the lean model has proven itself to be the correct one in the end. I have no desire to own a physical store ever. And I know I'll be doing this for a number of years. This is one of my main professions that I'll do, but I'll never scale up to that point because then you're in trouble. Then you don't have flexibility. So I encourage you to support the good local shops. Um, Go back to the mom and pop shops. If there's something you can buy, and you're sitting there, and it's a Saturday, and you got time, and it's a difference between going online and getting it, and just getting in your car or your bike or whatever, and going down and visiting the local mom and pop shop. Do that because I think that in the end, every little bit helps to make the local mom and make the local mom and pop shop great again. And I think if we start doing things like that, that will make a difference. I really do. I honestly do. Guys, now, full disclosure, full disclosure, um, I went to go see my dentist this week, And she told me that I had to have my wisdom tooth pulled because it just gives me, a pain these days. So I'm not going to talk a lot tonight. I'm going to keep this under an hour tonight, um, because I'm feeling that a little bit here. It's not so bad. I'm taking ibuprofen for it, but until I can get it pulled, and it's not so bad. At 58 years old, I still got all my original teeth, except for one wisdom tooth back here I pulled last year, if you guys remember, and the dentist told me it's time to do this one on this side. So I'm a little bit of agony tonight, but for some reason I'm still hanging in there. Um, I was watching Katie Sackhoff. You guys know the actress, her channel. I like Katie. I really like her. I think she's a fantastic actress, and I just think she's a warm, phenomenal person. And she was interviewing Brent Spiner, Mr. Data from Star Trek, and she had a migraine at the time. But, she was like a trooper. She just went through and did it. So, I can do this with a toothache. If Katie can do it with a migraine, I can do it with a toothache. But I thought I would point uh, if I sound a little thick tongued more than usual tonight, uh, then that's the reason why. So, but hopefully we'll get that sorted out here soon enough. Don't get yourself a dry socket. Yeah, when I got this first one pulled last year, that was, I being me, I studied everything that I could read about what it feels like to have your tooth pulled because I never had it before. Maybe when I was a kid and then teeth were coming out, and my father used to tie a string on it and put the other string to the door and pull the door. My father really did that to me. That's no lie. When I was like 4 or 5, to get a loose tooth out, just quick. He wasn't being mean. It worked. But that was the last time I had that done. And dry socket was the thing that I was most concerned about. But I made it through with this one with no dry socket because I found out how to prevent that. I will be doing the same over here. I've got one or two teeth left. What country are you in? Ben asked to Mike. Got you. Clove oil helps. Yeah, yeah, rinsing your mouth out with a solution of hydrogen peroxide and water also helps as well. There's a couple of things you can do. It's gonna suck. I am not looking forward to it, but this pain that I have I don't want to do that either because I can't see myself popping aspirin all the time. I'm not that kind of guy. Plus, it's really not good for you. But yeah, I'm going to have to do that until I can get this taken out. If you're a singer, you're probably going to have to take some time off. No, no, not a singer, Andy, a producer. What I'm going to have to take time off is working out. Because I know I'm not going to want to. I have my personal trainer. I already told him, I said, look, dude, when I get that tooth pulled, you're not going to see me until I'm more like 100%, like, maybe 99%, but, well on my way to 100% before you see me. So, yeah, that's what's going to suck is I won't be able to work out. But that's okay. Um, Mike, nice. Still lots of shops out there, eh? That's awesome. Yeah, I think so. Upstairs, Mike, the only guitar dude with an accent like my own. Gotcha. Might not feel great if you're gonna take a flight. Yeah, yeah, either. Yeah, Andy, you don't want to do that. High altitude, cold air, all that stuff. No, I'm not gonna be doing all that. I'm pretty grounded for the summer, and it's hot as hell here. We got to 34°C today, and fortunately, in Japan, every one of the rooms in my home had air conditioning. In Singapore, every one of my rooms in my house had air conditioning. Here in in Amsterdam, this apartment, there is no air conditioning. But I'm on the top floor, the very top floor, so I got a lot of cross breeze. I got a lot of fans. So it was okay, but it was a hot one today. It was a hot one. So I will call that an end to that subject. I That's my 2 cents on it. I think the people see the closings of these major box chains, big box chains, and they sense dread. Oh my God, it's the end of music. Nobody's buying guitars anymore, and so these places are closing down. No, 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 no. That's not, no. En contraire, my frère. That's not the issue. The issue is over expansion and the fact that the mom and pop model, quite frankly, is what's appropriate, I think, for the music industry. Most of our guitar heroes bought their guitars at a mom and pop shop. The only guy that I know of that bought a guitar at the Guitar Center that I can point to and say that guitar came from the Guitar Center and was used on this record is Skunk Baxter's made in Japan Moser X guitar that he got for 25 bucks in, what was that, 78, 79 at the Guitar Center on Sunset, and went to the studio to record Donna Summer's Bad Girls album. So the guitar on that album, Bad Girls, is a $25 guitar from the Guitar Center there on Sunset. Other than that, I can't point to, all the rest of those guys bought theirs in small shops, especially the British guys. And in some cases, like Hendrix and Stevie Ray Vaughan and some of the older cats, they bought them in catalogs, which would be the old style equivalent of buying it online. Everybody says that buying online is such a new thing. You used to be able to buy things in a catalog. It was essentially, an analog version of the same thing. So that's been around for a while. So that's not the issue either. No, over expansion, and I hope to see in the future more of the leaner operations thrive. And I'd like to see the big producers of guitars fail. I think they need to, but that's a story for another time. I was talking. I finished these this summer. I am reading from the book Weird Scenes Inside the Canyon, talking about the music scene in LA in the 1960s, specifically in the Laurel Canyon area. Um, now, I touched upon a lot of the strange aspects so far of the individuals who made up the Laurel Canyon scene. Um, I want to talk about rabbit holes real quick. We're completely going in it. We're off the rails now, guys. So for the last 20 minutes or so here, I'm going to go off the rails a little bit completely. Michael Watson says, hell yeah, Sears sold everything. Yeah, everything. It wasn't just guitars, it was shoes. I got a pair of shoes that I had made, personally made, custom made in Japan that come from the 1938 Sears catalog. I wore them today, and people were complimenting them. They look nice. I said, yeah, these are one of a kind, but they're from a Sears catalog, essentially. Godspeed. Got to get back to the machine work. Glad I caught you a tiny bit tonight. Thank you, Andy. Godspeed to you, too. Thank you so much for taking your time, man. And it's so good to have you here. Please, please come back soon. Yeah, we're going off the rails a little bit here. Green Stab catalog. Yeah, so the blue chip catalog, when I was a kid, we used to save the blue chips. You go to the supermarket, you get some groceries, and they give you these little blue stamps. You take those home, you put it in a booklet, and when you fill up enough of those booklets, you go to the green shop stop, the green shop, the green stamp shop, and you can trade those booklets in for things. And I experienced that growing up. I bought things out of a Sears catalog. I'm that old. I am that old. Back in the, I've ordered things when I was a kid. We ordered toys out of Sears catalog, and I used green stamps, green chip stamps, or blue chip stamps, one of the two. I think ours was green, but it's the same thing as blue chip stamps. So yeah, I'm pretty old. Joy Fitness World, where are you from? From Los Angeles. So going off the rails, guys. We're gonna do a complete 180 here, go in a different direction. Rabbit holes, guys. I like reading from this book, Weird Scenes Inside the Cabin, the Canyon, because I can tie in the rabbit holes that I look into this subject, the music industry, which is of course relevant for this channel. So it gives me an excuse to kind of indoctrinate you, if you will, if you forgive the use of that word, you guys, into getting a wider view of things, shall we say. I use this platform to do that, and I'm very open about it. By the way, I'm not trying to to indoctrinate you into things that are harmful. Certainly, more actually to the truth is I'm trying to indoctrinate you to wake up. Remember, the last scene in School Days was uh, was that brother yelling, "Wake up!" You know, in other words, you know, open up your eyes and be aware. There, Benny, how you doing? Good to see you, sir. Welcome to you. Came just at either the wrong time or the right time, depending upon how you feel. Um, AIDS Obama. No, I was never an aide to Obama. You got so much time absolutely jobless. Yeah, yeah, that happens too, unfortunately. A lot of people getting laid off. That's a bad thing. This world is a foul, evil place with a lot of foul things that are so foul that I don't even want to. That you know, the Bible says things so foul that they can't even be mentioned. And boy, is that the truth. This Laurel Canyon situation really is one of the tentacles in that particularly foul octopus out there. And I'll just say that to start this off the rails conversation tonight, to to say that beware of beware of deception, guys. Beware of being deceived. Um, I love that line. I use it from time to time from the Star Wars, where Saw Gerrera says, "Lies, lies, always lies." You know, I love that way that Forrest Whitaker delivers that line: "Lies, lies, all the time." And we're moving into a time where the deception is even greater than it was back here in Laurel Canyon, and this is some diabolical deception that was going on to the greater community. Tonight, I want to talk about hippies. I'm old enough and remember very distinctly when I was 10 years old, about 9 or 10 years old, so this is 1976, 1977, there was still some hippie holdouts in LA. And if you went down to Santa Monica, especially down Santa Monica Pier area at that time in the 70s, I saw hippie chicks, like, or at least I guess they were probably hippies back in the late 60s, and by this time it was about 7, 8 years later, so they were in their 30s, but they were still dressed the same. And they smelled so nice. I remember this one chick, she smelled like, it's like that kissed a girl. She smelled like cherry chapstick. and and dressed as you imagine hippies to dress. But and then I ran into the children of the hippies later on. or older, or guys my age who adapted that hippie lifestyle. But I know it very well, firsthand. It's not something I read about in a history book. It's something that I saw. The hippie culture has sinister roots. So I want to talk about the sinister roots of hippie culture tonight. Call them freaks, the underground, the counterculture, flower children, or hippies. They are all loose labels for the youth culture of the 60s. This is Barry Miles, author of the book Hippie. Kim Filey talks about a guy named Vito. Vito in the 1960s was in his 50s, which means he was born in the 1910s or 20s. But he had four-way sex with goddesses. He had these clay sculpting classes on Laurel Avenue, teaching rich Beverly Hills dowagers how to sculpt. And it also served as the Byrds' rehearsal room. Then, at that time, Jen Dixon had the idea to put them at Cicero's on the basis that all of these hippie freaks would show up and the Byrds would be their Beatles. So this is how they use these girls, these runaways, these folks that showed up on the LA scene. They were brought into a lot of the original communes. That's why you hear about communes and things like that from that period. And also got hooked in by a lot of guys like Vito and the freaks, this collection of mostly chicks that he called his freaks. And he used these freaks in order to build up the reputation of the Laurel Canyon bands. So you can't have a band unless you've got an audience. And, having played to no people with a band and played to a full room, I gotta tell you, it's a lot better to play to a full room. And so here you have this incestuous, I use that term not loosely but correctly, this incestuous relationship between these hippies, Laurel Canyon hippies, and the Laurel Canyon clubs and the Laurel Canyon musicians in order to create a scene. So it begins this story. We had them all. We had Jack Nicholson dancing. Jack Nicholson spent a lot of time in Laurel Canyon. We'll talk about that later. We had Peter Fonda dancing with Odetta. We had Vito and his freaks, all at this club, Cicero's. Vito and his freaks were an acid-drenched extension of a family of brain-damaged cohabitants, basically a commune. Vito and his freaks played a crucial role in the early success of David Crosby's band, and also, notably, in the early success of Arthur Lee's band, and also, notably, in the early success of Frank Zappa's band, and also, noticeably, in the early success of Jim Morrison's band, but especially in the early success of David Crosby's band. Right? Okay, so you see where the hippie chicks, the Sunset hippie chicks had their role. And where did they eat? Where did they sleep? Where did they take a crap? Who was funding this? Where was the money? See, cui bono, who benefits? And even beyond cui bono, who's paying for it? At the top of the list. When you look at any of these, by the way, again, going off in another direction, but when you see any of these riots, insurrections, or like stuff that's going on in LA, the first question you should always ask yourself first is who's paying for it? And cui bono, who benefits? And the same thing was here. Again, like I said, this playbook has been around for a half a century or more. Okay? So just something to think about. Catch up in the chats here. Lookout Mountain. Yep, we're going to get into Lookout Mountain a couple of chapters from now. Still happening every day in Hollywood today, Maddie says. Yeah. Oh, I got my two guys, Scott And Maddie here. Thank you guys, by the way, for showing up always, and helping out with the chat. Follow the money as always. Yeah, follow the money, guys. When you see that stuff, when you see those that stuff happening in LA, always first question. Always ask yourself, who's paying for this? Initials usually start with a G and end with an S these days. But ask yourself that question. The second question, of course, is who benefits? Who benefits? And watch the proliferate players and the things that they say. That will help clarify things as well. But this playbook, I point this out to you guys to show you that this playbook has been around for a long time, using groups in order to achieve certain goals. The Byrds were closely associated with Vito and his freaks. Vito Palakas, his wife Suzo, and Carl Frozzoni, the leaders of a group of about 35 dancers. 35 dancers. Let's put that in quotes. It's like you meet a girl and you say, "Oh, what do you do?" "Oh, I'm a dancer." "Oh, really?" So, do you work with the Royal Ballet? No? Okay. 35 dancers whose antics enlivened the Byrds' early gigs. In the book Waiting for the Sun, Barney Hoskins wrote that the early success of the Byrds and other bands was due in no small part to the roving troupe of self-styled freaks led by the ancient beatnik Vito Poltakas and his trusty, lusty sidekick Carl Frozzani. Alban Snoopy Feisner, former drummer and keyboardist for the band Love, went further still, claiming that Vito actually got the Byrds together. As I remember, they did a lot of the rehearsing at his pad. Okay. Well, I've got these 35 chicks. What am I going to do with them? Oh, I know. I'll create a band, and then I'll use the chicks in order to promote the band and get them hyped up. Does that sound normal to you guys? By the way, does that sound like that's, again, let's run it through the smell check and ask ourselves, does that sound like something that would happen in real life? And the answer generally comes back no. No. Vito and his freak partners were notable for something else as well. The first hippies in Hollywood, perhaps the first hippies anywhere, were Vito's. And his buddy Captain Fuck and their group of about 35 dancers. That's a great name, calling themselves freaks. They lived a similar communal lifestyle and engaged in sex orgies and freeform dancing wherever they could. So, okay, I'm going to end there because my tooth is aching me to the point where I'm going to stop. But I think I've made my point here. Again, you had some organizations that were set up in order to support other organizations that were being set up within this community. And they all had incestuous relationships. They all knew each other in some ways or another. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. The immoral trinity. But certainly, guys, these are playbooks that are being used to this day. So certainly something to keep in mind. Thanks, guys, for showing up. As always, I'm sorry that I'm in a little agony right now all of a sudden. I'm going to go take an aspirin and try to see if it goes away. And you guys enjoy your week. Watch the video. Not a popular one, but watch the video at Sports Channel anyway that I just put out yesterday on the early Grecos. Love to hear your thoughts down in the comments section of this video today. What you thought about the topic. Certainly always love to hear from you guys. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comment section as well, because I will do a live stream that will just be viewers' questions. So I'd like to gather enough of those over time in order to put them together. So if I brought up a subject, or if you have a question or something that you'd like me to answer in a live stream coming up here down the road, leave it down in the comment section and we will do so. Thank you, Scott. Thank you. Thank you to all you guys. Maddie, thank you to you and Scott for moderating tonight as always. You guys take care. I enjoyed this tonight. This was a good one. And God bless, and I will see you guys later. Bye bye.